Yep, another upgrade for the blue-white deck. 2 copies of Settle the Wreckage in Jim's deck. That card does not sweat a Bristling Hydra. Nice instant speed answer to that one when it's attacking. Just a couple of lands to start things out. See if Cabrea is able to have a 2-drop here. Serving the Conduit, generally the ideal one. Long Tusk Cub, pretty good though.
Yeah, that'll do just fine. Jim will Essence Scatter here. 1 Essence Scatter. Jim's Counterspell Suite's a little interesting here. He's got 1 Essence Scatter, 1 Disallow, 2 Supreme Will in the main.
Yeah, 4 copies of Censor as well. That's kind of the default one. Buys you some time, and just because Approach to the Second Sun just wins when you cast it,
yeah,
Censor is just generally going to be the counterspell that you want. You just want to make a land drop every turn. Censor will buy you tempo, and you just resolve your 7-mana spell twice, and that's the game.
Every card cycles in the deck, which is very nice. Jim casts Opt with Ronus on the stack. Does not find Censor.
Would have been nice.
I like this endorsement on Jim's side. 4 copies of Opt.
Invasion copies at that.
Of course.
Text box on that one is technically different. The Oracle text says Scry. This was before Scry existed.
So that would mean if he had a Flame Speaker Adept, it wouldn't get pumped, right?
You want to make sure to check the Oracle.
Cast another Opt on end step. Ronus resolves to go back over to Jim.
He does have access to a farm to market in hand, so Ronus shouldn't be a big deal here.
Says go, 4 mana. One thing Jim has done, 4 copies of Ipnu Rivulet in his deck. Now that means if he has to cast, say, Disallow, he will take damage here, but this is the desert that can mill a player. What has been neat about it, it's twofold. We're talking to Jim, he said, first of all, it can dig him to Approach for the Second Sun, but he actually said this is very good in the mirror, which is pretty hilarious.
If you know your opponent's going to draw Approach, just mill it.
Whirler Virtuoso, the play for Cabrea. And Jim will go ahead and cast out the Ronus on end step.
Yeah, lines up better against Ronus than it does against Virtuoso anyway.
Yeah, especially if Jim has something like Fumigate. This cast out seems pretty easy here. And now Search for Azcanta. It's our second look at this card. I was really impressed with it in our first game. And Jim has been singing this card's praises too. 2 copies in his deck. He was joking. He said some of these, he had gotten some of his inspiration for this deck list from some Magic Online results. Where he said sometimes he considered playing 4. Farm to Market will take down the Whirler Virtuoso. Thopter gets in for 1.
And Search for Azcanta is actually one of the major reasons that you would go heavy on Opt. It's pretty easy to get up to 7 cards in your graveyard if you just have these 1-mana cantrips.
Yeah, if only he could play Thought Scour. Upkeep, Jim's going to use the Scry off Search for Azcanta. He's got 4 cards in the graveyard so far.
Yeah, Thought Scour would be nice with the Approach to the Second Sun, too.
Well, what I actually like about Azcanta is it eventually is a ramp spell for the deck, which Approach to the Second Sun is a 7-mana card, so I'll take that. It finds me an Approach and then turns into a land to cast it.
Yeah, you get to skip on drawing lands because you have a guaranteed one coming anyway. Jim's last cards in hand looks like an Ipnu Rivulet and Approach to the Second Sun.
Yeah, he scries a Fumigate to the top and draws it. It was a bit of a tension point for Jim. He doesn't appear to have land number 6. His deck's actually short on natural card advantage.
Yeah, so he has the 6th land, but you want to get up to 7 cards in graveyard because that's how you turn the Search into the 7th land. Though he will want to cast the Fumigate at some point.
You sack Ipnu Rivulet, mill yourself.
not just yet.
That's not, okay, that's not what we're doing?
Yeah.
He's going to cast the Market half of Farm to Market. So this is draw 2, discard 2 for 3 mana.
That'll go up a card in the graveyard.
I suppose it goes up 1, right? Because he has to exile it to cast. Censor and a land look to be the ones he's picking. He's got, his hand is Approach of the Second Sun, Fumigate, Censor, a Blue Desert.
So he'll be going up to 5 cards in graveyard. If he just cycles, or he'd love to be able to cast and counter something with Censor, that's 6. Bins a card with the Search, that goes up to 7, flips that. That's his 7th land if he makes a land drop this turn. He did discard a land, though, so he won't be able to cast Approach next turn.
Yes, he wasn't trying to turbo his way out to Approach. He would have, I guess he could have discarded Glimmer of Genius. To do that, player talking about, you would have had to discard Glimmer of Genius and Fumigate. That just feels really bad.
Yeah, I really don't want to discard the Fumigate.
See, Jim takes 7, make that 8 after a Glorybringer from Cabrea.
I suppose if you're really into casting Fumigate next turn anyway, you don't have to worry about turboing.
I'm pretty into casting Fumigate right now. I'm really hoping it doesn't get Spell Pierced if I'm Jim.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate.
He'd lose.
Nothing you can do.
Get Spell Pierced, and then the second Glorybringer would kill him. But here's Fumigate. Jim goes back up to 14, clears the board. I'm talking to Jim about the deck. He likes Blue-White Approach. Said he needs to have a strong sideboard right now with a format where players can play Duress, Spell Pierce, and Negate. He said this deck, you need a backup plan. But game 1, it's very powerful.
Yeah, I have plenty of answers, and he has 3 copies of Approach. So you can just find the other ones if he runs into counter magic.
Decides his scry and search for Azcanta. It's going to flip regardless of what he does with this card. He will put Opt in the graveyard and get his land. So he's found Azcanta, the temple. There it is. It's land number 6. Does not have land 7. Drew Glimmer of Genius for the turn. Can only be so unhappy about that, though.
Right.
And what I do like about Jim's hand, so he's got Approach of the Second Sun, 2 Glimmer of Geniuses, and a Supreme Will. So once he casts the Approach, he can find it again in 1 turn's time.
Well, the nice thing about this setup, too, is he's thinking about it. You go for main deck Glimmer, find an untapped land here, leave up Supreme Will, and then the next turn you can cast the Approach.
And hopefully you don't even have to cast the Supreme Will, so you can just have those 8 cards worth of dig.
Right.
Though I guess he has the flipped, he has Azcanta, so he already has 8 cards worth of dig. Azcanta's good in this deck.
Indeed. And there it is, the 4th card down, Basic Plains.
Sounds great.
Never been so
Land
happy
7,
to see that one in my life.
Yeah. It casts blue spells.
It fills the colorless requirement.
Yeah. Feels the comes into play untapped. That's like the best part about it. Got a land and a Censor that turn, it looks like. And it's going to be the Scarab God. Jim says absolutely not.
And because the Servant attacked, that makes it so Cabrea couldn't pay the 3.
You're right, he maybe would want to have pre-combated that. Approach of the Second Sun from Jim, he'll go to 19. That does resolve. In the main deck, there are no counters in Cabrea's deck. Let's bury it 7 cards down.
Won't take Jim too terribly long to find that one. And when you're just getting attacked by Servant of the Conduit, you're not under a ton of pressure anyway.
Long Tusk up from Cabrea. Jim's at 17. And here we go. Settle the Wreckage, drawn by Jim. It's a 2 of in his deck. The new sweeper here from Ixalan.
Doesn't quite have the mana to activate Azcanta and cast Settle the Wreckage, but he's also not under enough pressure where he needs to cast Settle the Wreckage.
Says go. Cabrea swings for 4. Jim can take it. Looks like he can just on end step dig all the way down to that Approach again. Well, actually, wait, he's a mana short. We'll see. He's going to go ahead and so he'll Aether Melt down the Long Tusk Cub. That'll, since it won't deal combat damage, Cabrea won't actually get energy.
Yep, now just a 0/4.
Yeah. Then Jim will Glimmer on end step, assuming he's scrying both to the bottom. Unless the top of his deck is just 2 more approaches. In that case, he can do whatever he wants.
Okay. Suppose I'll cast this spell.
Says I'm going to keep that on top. He's got to draw another one. Right?
He's resolved 1 already.
No, draw 2 cards off the Glimmer.
Oh, sure.
He only drew.
He activated Azcanta.
Oh, that was the Azcanta? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, the sun comes around a second time, and Jim Davis will take game 1.
Easy.
Yeah.
Your third-round pairings have been posted.
Strong there, game 1. And his deck is so good in the first game.
Yes, yeah. If your opponent's not main decking counter spells at all, you have pretty good catch-all answers to get you just casting your spell your opponent can't interact with that wins the game.
All right, so on Cabrea's side, let's look at some sideboard. And talked a bit about this, how Jim's deck actually does get worse out of sideboarding despite being a control deck. So Cabrea's deck in the sideboard, 4 Negate, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Chandra's Defeat, 2 Cartouche of Ambition. That's the black Cartouche. 2 Aethersphere Harvester, 2 Confiscation Coups, and a copy of Carnage Tyrant.
Yeah, so outside of the negates and the Spell Pierce, a lot of this stuff is for aggressive matchups. The other find here is the Carnage Tyrant. It can't be countered. Notably, Jim has quite a lot of answers to Carnage Tyrant. It's not necessarily excellent here, but if you want to commit just one threat and not play into a sweeper, then it is really good.
Yeah, so I assume he wants the 4 negates, 2 Spell Pierce. Probably wants the Carnage Tyrant. It forces Jim to have specific answers.
If you're registering it, you're bringing it in. Certainly this early in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, this is the matchup you don't...
Right.
If you want that kind of card, I assume it's for this matchup.
Right. If it's wrong in this matchup, the mistake was putting it in your 75.
Right, yeah, this giant hexproof uncounterable guy, probably for the all-kill spells control deck.
Yep.
On Jim Davis's side, so this is interesting. We've seen a lot of Torrential Gearhulk this weekend so far, but none of it in the main deck, and Jim is no exception. He's got 3 copies of Torrential Gearhulk in the sideboard. Because of the problems with cards like Negate and Spell Pierce, I feel like Jim just has to board this in all the time.
Yep. And you're pretty into it in a matchup like this as well. Your opponent has a lot of stuff like Long Tusk Cub, Rogue Refiner. So just having that creature that can get in front, of course, flashing back your counter spells or Glimmer Your Genius is a good way to pull ahead. Also, the fact that you expect Negate to be the interaction of choice of your opponent, you can't negate Torrential Gearhulk, so it's a pretty significant upgrade there. This might be a matchup for Regal Caracal. It is more for the red decks, but it's fine in kind of these mid-range mirrors. You could also see Jace's defeat to fight over Negate, though it's it's fine. Countering Rogue Refiner is actually pretty significant.
Yeah, Regal Caracal fills a spot where we saw it earlier, where it's another threat. It's another win con. We saw it coming against Esper tokens. But that was because the tokens deck was a negate duress deck. I mean, I feel like Jim just has to board in these mid-range things. If this turns into a slot where Jim has to just have alternate win conditions in the sideboard, do you think Regal Caracal is going to be the one that people play going forward, or maybe there's other cards that they can go to?
Caracal is really nice against the red deck. If it's not too hard to be black, there's a pretty good argument for just playing the Scarab God. I mean, we see so many decks with Scarab God in the sideboard. The card is excellent.
Yeah. That card has really gone up. We've seen in how much we've seen it this weekend.
Yes. It just the longer the card has been legal, the more people have started playing it. It's just so good.
Yeah, especially now that cards like Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, no longer legal, something else you might play there. It really increases it.
Right.
All right, they're going to wait for a second game. Jesus Cabrea will be on the play as he's down a game. Now, Star City Games, we have the StarCityGames.com newsletter. This comes out every week from Star City Games. It comes directly from us into your inbox. It is your source for Magic the Gathering news. You can get upcoming events like this Open here in Dallas on the SCG Tour. You get highlights from our best articles from the week and some of the best matches of the weekend. You can find game nights, invitational, qualifiers, and a free comic. It's also, you just get to sign up for it, and there's no strings attached. So, StarCityGames.com/newsletter, and you can sign up today.
$0, the best price.
As we will get ready here for a second game. I'm interested to see how Blue-White approaches playability is going forward. This weekend, it is crushing so far. As far as what we've seen, it seems like it's good against a lot of these decks. It might be one of those. It is one of these strategies that is a victim of its own success, especially when you have such weapons available against it in the metagame.
Yes. Main deck negates are quite powerful against this deck. I do think that the ability to just board in Torrential Gearhulks and some other creature in that spot and just win games is pretty nice. If Disallow becomes very popular, or say the Mirror becomes very popular, Supreme Will, the deck does lose a lot of stock to that.
If the Mirror starts being a thing, I would think a blue-black control deck would be very good against this. But until we get to that part where control mirrors are a thing, control mirrors certainly weren't a thing last standard. They're pretty rare.
Yeah. Just some control deck that wins with something other than a 7-mana do nothing.
A 7-mana sorcery do nothing. Yeah. I mean, that was when I first saw this deck come on the scene, I was always skeptical of, you're telling me you want to replace a 6-mana instant speed win con with a 7-mana sorcery speed win con. I was thinking that's not how control works.
It just wins so easily though. You don't have to attack with any creatures. Just cast 2 7-mana spells.
I always liked the concession step as a win con. I never, don't know why we need to have anything more than that.
Yeah, modern design really shies away from making that possible.
It's nice.
Jim does not look terribly pleased with this 6-card hand.
The blue-white approach deck, more so than many control decks, can't mulligan, however. Most control decks are fine to mulligan, but with blue-white approach, it has so few sources of natural card advantage. And also, in addition to that, needs to make it to 7 mana. You have to keep most of your 6-card hands.
Yeah. Can't imagine Jim cycles too many of these Desert of the Mindfuls.
Right. And he will opt. I don't...
Ooh, looks like a one-land opt. Uh-oh.
And a swing and a miss, he'll say go. Now, he did pick up off that opt a Search for Ascanta, so he has about a turn here. As Jesus Cabrea will make Rogue Refiner. Can Jim hit the land? No, it's a 7-mana card instead.
Little natural discard.
Get rid of that one. And this might be a quick one. 3 damage in. Jim would need an untapped land this turn. And even then, he'd need a lot of help. It's a difficulty. I remember of blue-red control when we used to watch that deck. It was pretty powerful when I felt like it hit its land drop every turn and cast its spell, like, removal spell on 2, something, counter spell on 3, glimmer on 4, or double removal on 4. I really liked the deck, but what I always was a knock against it I'd felt was if they ever missed a land drop before turn 4, I felt like its win percentage just went through the floor.
Yeah. And Jim just has a ton of 4+ mana stuff in his hand.
Yeah, and just there's no card that, like, what card is going to catch him up? What's the big, like, we saw a mulligan to 4 from a Teamer Energy deck, right? And then he almost won because he started chaining Rogue Refiners. He's like, well, if I draw this good card, I can catch up. But I don't, just like, Jim doesn't have that card.
Yeah, he needs to just find a land every turn of the game, and he needs to have already had Settle the Wreckage in hand, which I don't believe he does. So you need to buy a turn with that and then fumigate the following turn. Then you're in a game. You have to resolve these cards. Cabrea is going to have negates, maybe Spell Pierce post sideboard.
Whirler Virtuoso takes the Supreme Will from Jim's hand, and Jim's down to 5 on the attack. It's got opt, a lot of cast outs, a fumigate. It's just, there's no even, I guess his 2-mana kill spell is Aether Meltdown. If he can find one of those, he can survive. I'm not thrilled.
Assuming that the Harvester is not crewed.
No, you can melt down a vehicle.
Well, there's just some other creature enters the battlefield and crews the
Harvester.
Harvester.
Oh, yeah, you mean crewed by something that wasn't these two guys?
I don't think that Rogue Refiner would crew the Harvester. I thought that was kind of implicit, but, maybe Cabrea wants to gain 3 life.
Yeah, I mean, you can give it lifelink a lot of times with 6 energy. Swing for 6. Can Jim answer? Or he's going to cycle. Can he find Aether Meltdown? Nope.
Well, all right.
Nope, take 6. Yeah, that's a letdown. They're going to go to 3rd game. It is a risk of the blue control decks, though. It's just, they're pretty resilient, but redundant. I mean, like, they don't have that many bad draws, but their bad draws are really bad.
At a time where blue do-nothing control decks were capable or were sometimes the best deck in the format, creatures that replaced themselves did not have 3 power. Right? If you saw a card like Rogue Refiner in
so
2007, it would be
terrified.
a 1/1.
Terrified of Rogue Refiner. Yeah. Merchant of Secrets. You'd be like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if blue got a cantrip card for 3, it was a 1/1.
Yeah. It wasn't killing you. You didn't have to answer it immediately. These decks just have to have answers to everything, and they have to have them on time. Just threats are so good right now.
All right, well, they're going to go back to a 3rd game. So we have the Stars Games Invitational qualifiers, our way to qualify, well, for the Invitational. These are tournaments run at stores around the country, and they can qualify you for any of our upcoming invitationals. The next one is December 1st through 3rd in Roanoke, Virginia. You can qualify here at oneofstarcitygames.com Invitational Qualifiers. They have $1,000 in prizes to the top 8. You get qualifications for the Invitational. You get points here for the SCG Tour to help you earn buys at events. You get playmats to the top 8, pins to the top 8, and you can get some of our exclusive tokens just by playing in them. Sign up for one if you're a store or find one if you're a player near you at starcitygames.com/IQ.
Yep. Really excellent tournament. Still time to qualify for the Season 2 Invitational here.
Now, for Jim Davis, captain of Metagame Gurus. On a different deck than the rest of the team, the 33-year-old from Long Island, New York, has 12 open top 8s, 2 wins, 3 invitational top 8s, but no wins. He was the Players' Champion in 2015.
College roller hockey and a hockey and golf player. Actually compares himself to Happy Gilmore.
So I was playing, does he do them both at the same time? You know, like the running slapstick swings?
I can only assume.
Those are nice.
I don't know
I've
why
tried doing that on the driving range. I can't do it. It's really hard.
And I'm
It's
sure
like get a club and I try to get a running start. I like miss and then fall over.
that sounds right.
Yeah.
You can also, I got a good mental image. That just makes sense to me. You falling over, attempting to.
Well, actually, when I stand still and try to swing the club, I miss and then fall over sometimes too. But less.
And Jim Davis, of course, does Magic full time.
I'm more likely to just like slam the club into the ground really hard, and then like the ball goes 2 feet, and then I don't know why I went to a driving range because I just feel like an idiot.
I could do this in my backyard. There's just no danger of hurting anybody.
No, I did like ruin my lawn. Attune, turn 1 from Cabrea.
Some deliberation on the land to find.
Yeah.
Ooh, swamp.
Okay.
The Scarab God.
Yeah, that's a sign that his mana is pretty well set up. That's the only black card. No, he's got these Cartouche of Ambitions in the sideboard.
Yeah,
I don't think they're in.
Given that he didn't crew the Harvester to gain life in game 2 there.
I was actually surprised to see Aethersphere Harvester still in the deck.
Yeah, I think that the idea is that it does a little bit of work to insulate you against Fumigate. You just cast a creature, it kind of has haste.
Turn 2 Long Tusk Cub from Cabrea. No Censor from Jim. I'll just draw a card. The Blue-Eyed Approach deck is a deck to me that really benefits from being on the play. I know that every deck benefits from it to a certain point.
If you're trying to do something on turns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, yeah, you want to make sure that you have a momentum going for you.
That Jim just spent turn 2 doing nothing here and then casting Farm on turn 3. This, if were Jim on the draw, this would cost him a lot of life points to do. On the play, it's just good. But Cabrea's got some action of his own. Rogue Refiner to replace the Long Tusk Cub, draws him a card, nets him 2 energy.
I believe Jim has a Glimmer of Genius in hand, picked up a Censor for the turn, so he'll have some options here. He would love to be in a spot where he can just cast Glimmer here. That's what these decks want to do just all the time.
Rogue Refiner swings, Jim to 17. Cabrea is going to go for another Refiner, and that's going to be a Virtuoso. Leaving up that 1 mana, so no Censor here. Jim's options for end step will be Cast Out and Glimmer of Genius. I'm assuming we're going to see the old Glimmer there.
Yeah, these are 2 pretty poor targets for Cast Out. You also want to get a Fumigate online.
Well, Jim's actually holding Cabrea with the energy trigger on the stack. So he's thinking about casting out.
Yeah, with not enough energy to actually immediately convert a token, it's reasonable to go for the Virtuoso, especially because he doesn't already have the Fumigate.
Yeah, and I think Jim's going to make the play. I like it. Now Cabrea gets the energy. At this point, if you're in Jim's side, are you going to assume no Spell Pierce on Cabrea's side? Like, would have he jammed it, or is it possible Cabrea would have the Spell Pierce and just not cast?
It depends. If Cabrea has like a second Virtuoso, then absolutely that's a reason just not to Spell Pierce.
Right.
So there's some stuff in his hand, depending what happens in the following turn.
I feel like Jim has to read Spell Pierce pretty hard because he's playing the card Approach of the Second Sun. The question of does Cabrea have a Spell Pierce is a really important one to Jim.
Well, even before rotation, these energy decks, they always just had Negate in the sideboard.
Yeah.
So you're just going to have to play into something like that at some point in the game. It's just kind of unavoidable.
Long Tusk Cub from Cabrea. The Refiner hit Jim down to 14. And he'll say go, end step Genius from Jim Davis. Farm to market and opt. Well, might be interested in both of those.
These cards are both fine.
Yeah, he takes them both. I think I would wonder whether he needed to try to do better, saying, hey, these are good, but they're not Fumigate. Maybe I have to ship. This is a sign of confidence. It's like, yeah, these are good enough.
If he already has land drops rolled up, then keeping Opt just makes more sense. Using Opt to try to find the spell you actually want. He has some interaction, you know, getting that farm that'll get this long tusk cub off the battlefield.
What I still worry about, and this is the sideboard problem, is that his whole game plan is being sculpted around this approach of the second sun in his hand. And whereas surviving to turn 7 and then casting an approach worked game 1, I'm just not as confident on it here. And I don't think Jim can really do anything else.
If he finds one of those sideboard torrential gear hulks, though, he's done a great job of keeping Cabrea off of having a ton of attackers.
Yeah, Gear Hulk would just be so much better than approach here. If he just played Gear Hulk, Flashback Glimmer, I mean, I'm way into that.
Long Tusk Cub's going to grow before damage. Got to figure that Jim's going to pull the trigger on farm.
Well, he'll opt first. Basic Plains, that's going to scry to the bottom.
Easy bottom.
Oh, you never put that card on top?
No.
Basic so much better.
Upgrade.
Didn't even look. Did you look at his lands before you said that, or did you just I mean, you're right, but I'm wondering whether you checked.
Oh, certainly not.
And yeah, farm will hit the cub. But Jim takes 3 more off Rogue Refiner, down to 11. And here is the Scarab God at Cabrea playing around the sensor.
That's bad news for Jim.
Well, Jim can jam this approach of the second sun next turn. And now it's really going to be that Spell Pierce check.
Well, he needs to jam approach, but then he also needs to get to the second approach in time. He's under a lot of pressure with the Scarab God on the battlefield.
He's got Market in the graveyard, right? Sensor will cycle one more. More lands.
That's something.
I was wondering whether Jim wanted to cycle the second sensor or whether he wanted to like save it to help find approach again.
Sure. He's just kind of got to throw a Hail Mary from here.
Yeah, casting approach may not win the game, but it's better than not casting approach.
Yep. Just sit there with your 3 lands in hand and your Essence Scatter when the game's just rolled up on Cabrea's side.
Well, his other option, and he's going to cast approach here, would have been to cast Market and hope to just find immediately a Market into cast out.
Sure. I would make the argument that that is more greedy than this.
Oh, yeah. This is the safe play.
Because you're just like marketing into a different card that can be spell pierced. That doesn't win the game if it resolves.
Yeah, Jim goes up to 18. Well, I'm not sure that Jim survives to cast this approach again.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
But what if the top card's another approach? What if we just, it's just there?
Easy.
It's going to, Cabrea will eternalize Long Tusk Cub.
See, on the next turn here, he could potentially mark it into Fumigate and be able to cast it.
Yeah. Here is a big swing from Cabrea. And Aethersphere Harvester. He's tapping out, so Jim's down to 9.
Show me approach.
Yeah.
He's got a couple good draws here, actually. Settle the Wreckage would be pretty good. Fumigate would be excellent. He can mark it into either of those cards if he wants to cast them this turn.
Torrential Gear Hulk, the pickup.
Now that things have started going the way of the Scarab God, that one's not excellent.
I mean, it's
you can use it and farm something.
He's got 2 farm to markets in the graveyard,
yeah.
Doesn't need too much.
He's at 9. The way things are, he's losing 1 off the Scarab God, probably 2. You got to figure Cabrea's going to activate that upkeep again.
What's the advantage to doing it upkeep as opposed to?
You have 2 zombies when you check your trigger.
Okay.
You get to scry 2 as well.
Scry more. Jim's got Essence Scatter, Land, Torrential Gear Hulk. The possible instance in his graveyard. Looks like he has Glimmer of Genius, 2 farms, an Opt, and a Sensor.
It's also true that Cabrea, the only cards you want to draw, the Negate and Spell Pierce. So being able to scry for more before you draw, very beneficial. You know, just when most of your deck just doesn't matter.
Jim says go. Could eternalize a Cub on upkeep. Seems good. He'll do it. So he scries 2. Top bottom. That's not a great sign for Jim. I'm imagining Cabrea's looking for a negate.
Yep.
If you put, I'm not sure you'd keep anything on top that wasn't named negate. And if that's the case, that's bad news for Jim.
A little crew of the Aethersphere Harvester.
I like it.
Can't attack with that fresh cub anyway. May as well learn to fly.
And that 2 damage off Scarab God puts Jim to 7. That's really irrelevant. It's really relevant. He crewed Harvester, but didn't attack it. He's playing around Settle the Wreckage, it looks like.
Playing right into Torrential Gearhulk, though.
Yeah, it is. But he's ahead by enough. If that card he picked up this turn was Negate, I think I still like it.
Yeah. Jim has Essence Scatter as the counterspell in his hand. That won't really be able to interact with anything that matters here.
Here's Torrential Gearhulk. Yeah, so the attack was... like. So yes, the attack was pretty conservative. Cabrea still has him dead next turn, which should be fine. We'll see whether Jim's going to target Glimmer or Farm. It's pretty close.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff that kills him next turn. You could try to just get rid of one of those attackers and keep yourself at 7 life.
All right, I know you're hoping for Gearhulk Flashing Black Glimmer, but not right now. It's Gearhulk Flashing Black Farm.
If it was anybody else but Jim, I'd be irate. I think this is the right play, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it stinks that...
There'll be more time.
I had a gun for Glimmer anyway, and then I would have lost.
At least I won out doing what I love.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I'm going to say you can't take it with you. Now, Negate on Farm. I do not like this play from Cabrea.
Yeah, so approach is lethal right now, and he doesn't even push through a lethal attack. The Gearhulk still blocks and keeps Jim alive this turn.
Jim's top card could just be another approach. Now, it's not the same one, but you are leaving yourself open. And Negate is such a good card on this board that I'm not sure I want to negate anything that isn't Approach of the Second Sun. I certainly don't want to negate Farm on my 4/4 Cub. That's just... I guess Cub can pump to a 6/6 here, and Cabrea will do that.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so Jim's down to 4. I mean, Jim's really dead next turn.
Yeah, he's really going to need to find Fumigate, Settle Wreckage.
Oh, yeah, he can even find Fumigate. Now that we don't have Negate, it's... Yeah, oof, I'm not into it.
Yeah, that Negate was extremely aggressive. That looks like a white card.
I think it's Settle the Wreckage.
I think so, too.
Sure wish we had a Negate for it. We'll see.
Ooh, actually, here's a nice one.
I was like, wait, Scarab God hits opponent's creatures, right?
Now that Gearhulk's in the graveyard, Negate's in the graveyard.
Ooh, this is nice.
Scarab God is just kind of a 4-mana 4/4 Negate.
Yeah, Jim needs, So the Settle the Wreckage doesn't work because Cabrea can just animate the Gearhulk and negate the Settle the Wreckage.
Yeah.
He's got to see it.
Sure.
And that's a real thing. Fumigate would have been great here. So Jim's going to cast Market. It loots him 2. It gets him a little closer to that possible Fumigate and closer to that approach. And there it is. There's the Fumigate.
Well, all right. Yeah, this one is safe. You know, Cabrera's tapped low for this. That's just going to happen.
Ryan, hold on. This is better than just that. Jim can Fumigate here. And, he's actually getting pretty close to that first approach of the second Sun he cast.
Yeah.
And he's keeping cast out so that he can cycle it for exactly that purpose.
Thinking about hanging on to Essence Scatter. Yeah, I think that one's a pretty easy discard. He's rethinking here.
Yeah, land, Essence Scatter. Looks like those are the ones I'd want to bin.
Yep. Yeah, there's just no games where Essence Scatter is going to be the difference going forward from here.
And here's Fumigate. Jim will go to 8. Yeah, it's, this is just a misstep from Cabrea. And maybe he can recover from it. We will see. Perhaps he has another Negate in hand, That could definitely be.
That'd be nice.
Something like Glorybringer Negate. Just not care.
Yeah,
Get there anyway.
That would do it.
Has the mana for it. Here's 5. Here's another Scarab God. It's going to crew Harvester and attack Jim for 3. Cabrea, 1 card in hand, does have Negate mana open.
And now with the Scarab God back in play, going forward, he'll be able to Scarab God up the Gearhulk.
Yeah, but Jim has that cast out to cycle, and I'll admit I haven't kept a count on where that approach the second Sun is, but we're close. Because he cast the Market to loot for 2. Jim knows where it is. That's the important part here.
Jim could cast Settle and cast out in this turn cycle.
Yeah, I think what I'm wondering is whether he's supposed to cast out the Scarab God or cycle the cast out.
It's
like
a tough spot.
Yeah, where is the approach? How many cards deep is it? If he cycles the cast out into another cycler, you know, is it lethal? Okay, he'll cycle cast out. Opt. That should do it.
That's gotta be enough. He doesn't have enough mana.
Yes, he does. He has a land in hand. He has Glacial Fortress in hand.
All right, that'll do it.
Opt, top, draw, approach. Does he have the negate? And that's going to do it. Jim Davis takes this one in 3. It's such a bold line there. The cast out has to find another 1-mana cycler. And once he commits to that line, he can't get rid of Scarab God. He's going to lose on the untap. It's going to